Welcome, and thank you for joining us on our Smart Thinking webinar. Our topic today is Innovations in Innovation. My name is Bob Wiele, and I'm the founder and president of One Smart World. And I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your valuable day today to join us for 30 minutes of information on what's new in innovation. I'd like to welcome people from across Canada, the United States, and South America who are in on this broadcast. And this is the sixth of our monthly series. And it always focuses on a book and some practical information for you. The format basically is a quick snapshot of our company, some highlights from 5 principles of the book, and some wrap-up comments. So let's get going. The webinar is recorded, so you'll be able to access it afterwards, yes, and you will receive a copy of the slide deck. So don't worry about that. You can sit back and relax, and all the information will be forwarded to you within 48 hours of the webinar. And we will be completing it in approximately 30 minutes. If you have questions during the webinars, please post them on our question or chat element of the webinar control panel, and we will answer the questions either during the program or right afterwards. For those of you who are tweeters, please feel free to go online, send out messages, and we will reward you with a gift from or a prize from our company. So thank you again for that. All our webinars focus on the context or environment we work in these days and live in, and the theme seems to be accelerated volatility and uncertainty. What's happened in the past week with the election of President Obama, followed quickly by the revelations of General Petraeus and his subsequent resignation in the CIA, means that you never know what's going to happen next. If I was to write my biography, it's going to be called, or autobiography, it's going to be called There's Always Something. And I think these days there's always something. And what this webinar today is all about is what are the mental mindsets that companies and individuals need to be successful in the kind of a VUCA world that we live in. At One Smart World, we work in 2 areas. We work in business, where our focus is on accelerating collaborative teamwork and innovation. And in education, our focus is helping administrators and faculty improve retention, increase engagement, and helping students acquire the essential employability skills for the 21st century workplace that they're going to be entering into. Our clients in the corporate sector are from a wide range of organizations. As you can see here, large corporations, schools, and not-for-profits in a variety of sectors. And throughout it all, our focus has been on, because we have a world of diversity in terms of background, who we are, our ages, our genders, our cultural backgrounds, our skin colors, our sexuality, etc. When we also know different things, we come from different backgrounds, different technical backgrounds, different professional backgrounds, different life experience. But we also think differently. And when you put all that together, cognitive style diversity is kind of the X factor in helping teams work better together. And what we've done is build a common language and process toolkit for making that more effective in the workplace. Our offerings focus on personal and professional effectiveness, which have been the theme of half of our workshops, and the other half of our focus is on accelerating collaborative teamwork and innovation. And for those of you in the learning and development business, we also offer certification programs. In education, we've worked with progressive organizations at the university level, the college level, and at the school board level. And our focus has been, again, on either leadership development or on student success. And again, it's in helping people acquire thinking skills, higher order mental skills in terms of how they deal with the issues that they're going to be facing both in school and in the workplace. Our webinar today is going to focus on innovation, and I've shared with you a map that I developed a couple of years ago that looks at 3 levels of innovation: incremental, platform, and breakthrough. Incremental are the hundreds of small things we do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis just to make things a little bit better. For example, on this webinar, I spent hours just fine-tuning the slides, getting the message right, all that kind of thing. Platform is where you get 2 existing products or programs and synthesize them together into one new kind of program. Think of a smartphone being the best of the telephone world, the best of the data world, into one single new enterprise. or offering. And on the breakthrough level, that's the kind of thing that comes around once in a lifetime or once in a decade in a company, where it comes up with a breakthrough product or program that really makes a difference. In terms of the types of innovation we'll be looking at, there's product innovation, which we're familiar with, service innovation. Think of the pizza companies that, ready within and delivered within 30 minutes, or it's free. There's also how organizations operate. So process innovations are streamlining, reducing waste. Knowledge innovation, we know from collecting and sharing information. Marketing and sales innovation, that's another way of going to market. And at the bigger level, we had a client recently who was a vice president of a financial service institution. And she said, I'm taking over this demoralized department, and I'd like to put in an employee suggestion box. And I said, well, is this a process innovation or a culture innovation? And I said, what do you mean? I said, well, depending on how you frame it, if it's a process innovation, it's just something you stick out there and nobody's going to put anything in. If it's a culture innovation, what you're doing is trying to change the climate from one of disengagement to high engagement and commitment. And therefore, the way in which you position this, the way in which you respond quickly and effectively and honestly to anybody who puts anything forward is going to begin to be a key factor in changing the culture. So what we're going to be looking at today is a series of innovations that plot themselves at the incremental level, platform level, or breakthrough level in many of these different kinds of types of innovation along the left-hand column. The book we're featuring today has got an unfortunate title, but it's got a lot of really good information. It's called Jugaad Innovation. It's by three consultants, writers, who are based at Cambridge University and University of in Mumbai, and bring a lot of practical experience in terms of both consulting and writing and research. Now, the emphasis of Jugaad is on a MacGyver kind of mentality. Remember MacGyver? He's the kind of guy who could drop down a well hole, and he would, with basically a bit of chewing gum, a straw, an elastic band, find a way to get himself out of just about anywhere. So Jugaad is kind of a way of looking at things. It's an approach to life. It's an innovative fix, an improvised way of operating that's born from ingenuity and cleverness. And it's just a way of operating. In other words, always looking for a better way given the circumstances that you're in. The book talks about one of the ways we've lost our innovativeness is we've made things too complex, too expensive, too inflexible, too structured, too rigid. And as a result, innovation tends to go through channels that by the time it comes out the other end, the innovation itself is stymied. Why this book? Well, I think it takes a new take on innovation. It's not about a book of techniques. It's a book of strategies and thinking approaches that leaders can use on a regular basis. And it focuses on both the smart thinking approach and frugality. So in other words, this is not expensive. It's a way of saving money, using resources wisely, and bringing things to market. And I think it's got a lot of practical things that I know I can use, and hopefully you can use as well. So the webinar is going to focus on 5 principles and their benefits to the West. Here are the 5 principles, and I'll be giving examples of each one as I go through. So the very first principle is seek opportunity in adversity. And if I was raising kids again, or I was in an educational institution, or if I was doing leadership development work with new managers, one of the things I would stress over and over again is the importance of this principle, that adversity is around us all the time. We've protected our kids too much in many cases from adversity, and grit and mental toughness becomes a critical element in success. And the smart person reframes adversity and sees opportunities. One of the examples they give is this little fridge, which was built by a man called Prajapati in India, who lived in a village. He's a potter, and was looking at ways, could we come up with a fridge that could keep things cool without batteries or electricity? And there you go. He came up with a clay fridge that uses no batteries, no cords, no electricity. It's 100% recyclable, zero waste, sells for $50. And he created an ingenious way of using water poured into the fridge that keeps things cool. This has been a real breakthrough in areas and villages where The cost of food is expensive, and food doesn't keep for very long. So, and we know how important refrigeration is in Western society. And here's a way of breaking the paradigm and coming up with something very cool, so to speak. In adversity, we often find scarcity and diversity. Scarcity means if you think of how constrained governments increasingly are, particularly in Europe and in North America, and how natural resources are continuing to dwindle, and more bargain shops and dollar stores are picking up everywhere, popping up everywhere. People are very aware of finding better, cheaper, more effective ways of doing things and providing a variety of solutions to customers. So the points that they raise here in the first principle are to use a growth mindset. I'll talk about that in a second. And to approach things always from the point of view of the glass is half full, and to always use extreme conditions. I always say that if things are really bad, now's the time to innovate. Going back to what you were always doing in the past is the definition of insanity. Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So here we go, the fixed versus growth mindset. This is a finding that Carol Dweck, a professor at Stanford, came up with in her wonderful book called Mindset. And she looked at two different ways of approaching life. And for many years, this was supported by the psychological and brain types of academics who really felt that believed that the brain was fixed about the age of 12 and that we were hardwired. All the personality theorists were saying the same thing. This is basically how you are. So if you understand yourself, that's great, but there's not much you can do about it except to get over it and get on with it. So the fixed mindset says, we're hardwired, things are set in stone. There's really no opportunity to really grow or develop. It's pretty well we can acquire stuff, but we are who we are. Where the growth mindset is much more around, no, we know we're adaptable. We know we can change our thinking. Neuroplasticity has shown that our brains, in fact, are adaptable. And that the growth mindset always says, no matter what the challenge is, there's a can-do kind of persevering approach to whatever is going on. So this is a key thing in turning adversity into opportunity. Salesforce.com was started by Mark Benioff, and when they first came out, they came up with an online-based solution for salespeople who could pop into all their contacts, all their information online, and track from initial suspect to prospect to closing a deal along a formula that they developed. And then they moved into cloud computing. But when they first came out, the president of Siebel said, this company will be bankrupt in the first year. Salesforce.com has gone on to be a huge success, and it had been a driving force in cloud computing. And Siebel itself was sold off about 5 years ago. So, again, the innovator won in this particular case. Psychological capital basically means if you're a leader in an organization or a senior member of a team, the trick is to build that kind of resilience inside the team, and that's a critical thing. We now know in knowledge-based organizations, it's the human capital that makes the biggest difference, not the financial capital or the technology. You can always buy technology, you can always find funding, but you can't find talented, smart people who are committed, engaged, and confident in what they're doing. The second principle is to do more with less. This is something that we're fairly familiar with. We know that the scarcity and constraints are critical in coming up with great breakthroughs. When we have too many resources, we've found in research after research, there's almost an inverse relationship between the more money you have in R&D, the less R&D results you're going to get. So scarcity truly is the mother of invention. This is our Mitacool guy again, who came up with a better than Teflon type of frying pan that sells now for $2. And again, scarcity being the mother of invention, using clay-based products to produce these kinds of things. The Franklin stove was an innovation by Benjamin Franklin. Ben Franklin came up with this when he was challenged with how can we create more effective stoves, and he designed this particular model that allowed him to use 75% less wood and generate twice the amount of heat. Again, doing more with less, producing a more effective product with fewer resources. Now, this is one of my favorite examples here. This is the Embrace product that came out of a group of people at the University of Stanford who are trying to find ways of looking at new solutions for premature babies. We have something like 28 million premature babies who are born every year. 4 million die in the first year. And those that survive, particularly in the developing worlds, often have a lower IQ or suffer from heart-related or diabetes-related kinds of illnesses because they don't have the resources when they're first born. And in the developing world, they can't afford the $20,000 incubators that are required to keep these babies alive. So Jane Chen and three of her colleagues at the Stanford Center for Extreme Affordability came up with the Embrace model. And when they took it to Nepal, quickly found out that 80% of the babies there are born in villages, and they die not in hospitals, but because there's no electricity available. So they went back and rethought the whole idea and came up with a portable blanket type of mobile incubator that the mother could use as a transportable device. It made a huge difference, and the prototyping that they've come up with over and over again has made a significant difference. You can take a look at what Jane Chen talks about in her TED video. But she makes a really good point that often we fall in love with our designs and we fail to listen to our customers. I know, having been an innovator for 30 years now, I'll often come up with something that I think is fantastic, adds all kind of value that the customer really doesn't think is all that important. And so by continually listening and modifying the product features and benefits, you can continually come up with something that adds the highest value to the customer at the lowest cost. And innovation clearly is a process that never ends. As soon as you stop innovating, it's innovate or die. The third principle is think and act flexibly. Again, this is a mindset that's critical at the leadership level in an organization and should be encouraged at all levels across the organization. Think of Borders, the premier bookstore in the United States that, when Amazon first came out, ignored them completely, failed to address what Amazon was bringing, and finally acknowledged the importance of the internet by putting up a list of books that they sold, but you couldn't buy them online. Borders, of course, filed for bankruptcy in the last few years. Think of Blockbuster, who missed the whole Netflix and online video access. And think of Kodak, going bankrupt not too long ago, again, missing the whole digital photography movement. At Procter & Gamble, they've been a beacon for innovation for companies all around the world, and they understand that creativity is a critical driving force. But innovation is not invention. It's about taking an idea and making it into something of value that you can bring to the market and commercialize it. So it's only an innovation when someone can actually use it and find it valuable. Otherwise, it's just a good idea. So creativity is the start, but innovation driven into the marketplace, whether it's a curriculum innovation or a product, service, or knowledge innovation, is what really is the benchmark for success. One of the examples that I liked here was he talks about breaking rules and shifting values when necessary. I heard a talk by Mark Milleron, who's the chancellor of Western Governors University. They've come up with a completely alternative model for delivering post-secondary education. When you go to Western Governors University, all they care about is what your competency level is. It's not how many courses you take. So if you can demonstrate competency in something, you get a credit. So whether you get that credit in 2 days, 2 months, or 2 years, it doesn't make any difference. If you can demonstrate competency, then you go on to the next. They also have a mentor that's assigned to every student that enrolls in the college and university rather, and that mentor stays with the student from the very outset of their program with the college right to their graduation. So there's a consistency of relationship there. And all the classroom work is group work, and all the lectures are studied online. What a concept. The other thing they talked about is inflexible customers. Never worry about the laggards or the late adopters. Go where the bright spots are. We've got clients who get how important human capital is and get how important thinking styles, and having a common language and processes in place to help their teams work more effectively together. Don't worry about the naysayers. Just leave them behind. They'll always be saying no. And as 3M does, and companies like 3M, they create time and space for people to think and innovate on their own, and then in the long run adds value to the company. They also talked about partnering with flexible thinkers, and the example they used was Best Buy, big organization, retail organization that wanted more innovative products, and they partnered with a number of startups in Silicon Valley, including the company that produced Slingbox. They produced the financing, provided the distribution channels, and allowed Slingbox to come to market and give Best Buy world-class product at the time. And as they say in the book, fail cheap, fail fast, fail often, learn and keep going. Fail cheap means don't put a lot of money up front. That's a simplicity piece. Do rapid prototyping. Try stuff out right away and get feedback right away. Don't sit in your shop and build the perfect product. Make it good enough to get out there. And the more often you fail, the more quickly you can take that feedback and learn and keep going. One of the examples that I like, I've come across, is Kickstarter, which is a crowdsourcing, crowdfunding model. And what it allows you to do is put a project up online and have people decide if they want to invest in it or not. One of the ones I got involved in was a couple of young guys who are friends of my son Matt's. They came up with the Cobra wallet, and it's a kind of a high-tech carbon fiber kind of wallet that they were looking for $30,000. They had 60 days to raise that money. There was an online campaign. I signed up for a $55 version, a green version of the Cobra wallet. And the money they needed to raise was going to go to the tool and die makers in China who were going to craft basically the way in which you make these things. My $55 meant that I would actually get something for my money. So it wasn't so much I was investing, I was purchasing before the thing was actually built. Very, very clever way of generating cash. And you can see the 1,100 backers, which basically averaged around $50 each, like myself. They ended up making over almost 60% more than they needed. So that's another way of being flexible. And here's an example from IBM. When IBM decided to get out of the hardware business, this was a huge move for them. This is how they built their company, right back from the International Business Machines background. And Sam Palmisano said, it's time to move on. We got to move on. We got to keep moving forward, and we got to go where the market is, and we've got to continue to be on the front end of things. And they saw that as part of their culture, and like the Jugaad mentality, it's always around adjusting, moving forward, and innovating. The fourth principle is around keeping it simple. And for those of you who know the Apple products, they've been masters under Steve Jobs' leadership, whether it's the iPhone, the iPod, the iPad. These are products that are aesthetically engaging and intuitively simple. And they've been really paragons of how to do this right. Keeping it simple is important because in many cases we had all kinds of features that customers really don't want, or we continue to add upgrades that generate cash, or for those of us in the knowledge business or learning business, we make money from explaining. So the more complicated it is, the more they require us to come in as consultants or trainers or teachers or academics or experts to explain it, as opposed to disintermediating. When we built the 40i instrument, we were the first people to do an online psychometric where people could get their results instantaneously with all the coaching tips and complete explanation available without having someone in a white coat and a certificate come in to say, let me tell you all about yourself. So we just assumed that people were smart and could figure things out on their own, and if we gave them the tools and the information, they could make the decisions that they needed to do. Now, Vocal Point is an example of this. I was really struck by this. This is a Johnson & Johnson. Sorry, this is a Procter and Gamble operation whereby they provide a place to test out new product ideas, and they've got 600,000 women signed up, and these are the people who end up buying the products in the stores. And before they do anything, they run it by these folks, and they get instant feedback. They've extended their instead of focus groups, 600,000 people are giving them feedback on a regular basis in terms of whether they think this is good or bad, the colors are right or wrong, whatever the features or benefits are appropriate to the marketplace. Now, to build simplicity, it's important to have a core theme in your operation. Philips went from over 500 business units down to 70. They wanted to simplify things, and they wanted to distill their customer needs to really what customers wanted, as opposed to what the people in manufacturing or the people in product design wanted. And again, working from the ground up as opposed to the top down, you tend to be much more user or customer focused, as we talked about in our workshop with Heather Fraser in DesignWorks. Another thing is if you can find either a universal design philosophy or product platform that's simplified but not simplistic. One of the examples that Jugaad people talk about is General Motors, where they're trying to strip out weight from their vehicles to make them more fuel efficient and less heavy on the road, and also by creating product platforms that they can build different cars off that still look the same, look different, but get the efficiencies of having a single platform. Now, the fifth principle, which is one I really found interesting, was including the margins. And by this they mean look for people on the outside. And in the emerging markets where all the growth is happening, I think in the BRIC countries right now, there's so much more growth happening than in North America or in Europe. To look at the expanding low-income consumer base, and to recognize that marginal segments are not marginal minds. You know, intelligence is everywhere, and we've got to find better solutions for people out there. Some of the examples that we have found that in working in education, because of the relative inflexibility and difficulty in innovating in school boards, we end up working with the folks in continuing education and working in alternative programs where there's more flexibility, where these are marginal learners who are bright but never got the analytical thinking skills that are essential for their success. The teachers working with us now teach those students those skills that allow them to qualify for their grade 12, for post-secondary education, or for qualifying for employment. A couple of the examples they use in the book, one is called Text for Babies. And I thought this was just a terrific story. A Text for Babies is a solution that was developed by Johnson & Johnson. And it came out of the fact, again, that many lower income mothers in the United States don't know what to do when they're young and pregnant, or when they first have babies. They haven't got the social support that's necessary. So Text for Babies is like a mobile texting device that gives women information on how to take care of themselves while they're pregnant, the do's and don'ts of good nutrition, no smoking, no alcohol, etc., and some practical tips when the baby's born in those early first few months. There are approximately 500,000 premature babies born in the United States, and 28,000 die in the first year. And this has been a tremendous service for these women. And they project by the end of 2012, they'll have 1 million women signed up using this. So again, a terrific idea to use technology to lower the cost of inclusion. And in Mexico, they're using something called VitaNet, which is for HIV positive patients to remind them on a regular basis to take their medication. And can you imagine the same kind of thing being used in large populations when you've got a product or a service that you want to keep people up to date on that's non-intrusive, it's there for their benefit, not schlepping a product. So including the margin means finding the edges and building your products to serve those edges. And in many cases, they're very large markets. They also talk about partnering with not-for-profit organizations. In many cases, that would be useful. Or speaking of edges, the YourEncore.com is a strategy that's been used in the pharmaceutical industry to tap into all the brain power of thousands and thousands of retired scientists who still want to participate in projects but don't want to go to work every day in an office. And so what this does is, on a project-by-project basis, you can recruit some of the best minds out there who are on their own time around the world. It's a global workforce that they can go to, and put project teams together that have the right combination of skills and the right combination of experience to tap into the minds that they have and the knowledge they have, the experience that they have. So this kind of inclusive design principle is a very, very different way of operating than just going to your own team. So companies that have done this really well have included the margin. So just to wrap up then, the principles that we've covered are pretty straightforward. The book is not a book of how-tos, like do this or do that. It gives you some guidelines in terms of how to think about the customers you have, how to think about the products, services, ways of going to market that you currently have, and coming up with new ways of doing that by providing a more simplistic, more flexible, more use of adversity as a good thing, using constraints as a good thing as opposed to a barrier to innovation. For those of you interested in the innovation field, particularly in management and leadership, Gary Hamel's Mix Management Innovation Exchange is a free service you can sign up for, and I'd encourage you to take a look at that. One of their posts in the last couple of months has got a series of some of the top innovative moves out there, and it's just I always find it stimulating around what organizations are doing to keep their people engaged and to tap into that phenomenal intelligence that's embedded in these organizations. For those of you who like to read, I recommend, again, the Jugaad Innovation book is a good sort of stimulus for how to think about the innovation challenges you face, whether you're a small organization, a mid-sized organization, whether you're in the private sector or the public sector or the not-for-profit sector. It gives you some ways to go about your challenges that maybe you haven't thought of before, and will stimulate you to look at things in some new ways. The Innovator's DNA talks about 5 core thinking skills that innovators use, and this is based on some of the leading people in the world. Pretty interesting stuff. And again, the book by Heather Fraser. Heather is a colleague of ours who's at the Rotman School of Business at the University of Toronto. Has written an excellent book called Design Works, focusing on business design, which is a real core focus of innovation, where organizations are kind of recasting themselves to meet the competitive demands of today and tomorrow, much like educational institutions must do in order to meet the needs of young people going into the workforce today. Just to wrap up then, for those of you who are interested in our work, we're doing some professional certification programs in Toronto in December, in January and March, so please contact us if you're interested in that. For those of you interested in our work going forward, our next Smart Thinking webinar is happening in mid-January, January 14th, on meetings, better, faster, smarter. Again, a focus on practical techniques that you can use to engage the talents of your people to get more done in less time. So on behalf of our team at One Smart World, I want to thank you for your patience. I want to thank you for your attendance. I hope you have a terrific holiday season. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at your convenience, or send a message to info@onesmartworld.com. Or if you'd like to give us a call and start a conversation, we'd love to have that with you. Our phone number is 1-800-38-SMART, 1-800-387-6278. Again, thanks for your time. I hope you have an opportunity to try out some of these ideas and can start making a difference in the lives and the organizations that you operate in on a regular basis. Take good care. We'll talk to you soon.